right, we'll get started. Welcome, UFCW family, sisters, and friends. Welcome to our webinar From Chaos to Calm. So good to see so many of my sisters. Wow, we certainly live in a world that seems moving faster than ever with each sunrise, where demands are just getting put on us in every direction: home, work, family, friends, social groups. We are certainly exhausted, sisters. There is good news, sisters, that there is a huge strength that we all have. The strength is calm, not just the absence of no sound or conflict, but a deep-rooted calm. A calm that says, I won't be shaken, I won't be consumed by the chaos around me. Because let's be honest, sisters, our world is exhausting. We're expected to juggle our roles at work, meet deadlines, manage emotions, heal others, our kids, our nephew, nieces, and still find time to smile every time you see somebody. But sometimes we forget that every strong woman has a human heart that gets tired too. But here's the truth. We are allowed to pause, to do something we love, get that manicure and pedicure, and maybe add a little design to it. Listen to a book or read a book, whatever you enjoy. I personally like my audiobooks on my way to work in the morning, or even take a little walk on the sunset. You all might have seen my morning walks at the beach on Sunday mornings. That's my reset button. But we all need to do something for ourselves, for you. We are allowed to breathe, to center ourselves, to be in a protective, safe space. Calmness is not a weakness, it's our wisdom, it's our power to control. And knowing when to speak and when to stay silent and when to act and when to rest, when to carry the weight and when to lay down. Let us choose calm, not because we don't care, but because we care enough for ourselves to stay grounded. And let us still point and be the still point in our turning world. To every woman listening today, we do not have to match the chaos. We do not have to perform to others' approval. Our calm is our clarity, and it is our confidence. It is the quiet rebellion in the world that wants you distracted. You can stand tall, take a deep breath, and remember this: you are not here to survive the storm. Ladies, you are the storm and the calm that follows it. Yesterday, I took my first step with Michelle, who's joined us here today. So as you see behind me is this wonderful cabinet where every day I come back from a meeting, my negotiations, and there would come a pile of papers that would lay there until my next meeting. And yesterday she pointed out, what is all this? Like, what is all this chaos? And I said to her, well, that's actually my memory board. Like, that's my vision board. That's what keeps me grounded. It's photos of a women's network rally I went to with my sisters. It's a picture of my husband. It's the placard my mom and dad got when they became citizens of this country. It's the little giraffes that my reps kids made for me to remind me how special they are to me. But it's the things that I almost forgot. I lost my vision because of the chaos I've created in my own world, in my own office. And so today I actually turned around so you could see what I see from my desk every day. And so I just want to share that's my first step today to clearing out the chaos to the storm. And so today I hope you get some clarity. I hope you get some calmness. And now I'd like to introduce our sister Rebecca Johnson, who some of you might have met at our convention in May last year. She's amazing, and she will lead us through the chaos and give us valuable tools to keep us calm and be better leaders. She's founded, it's called Vital Work, and teaches many leaders like ourselves to succeed. Welcome, Rebecca, and I'll hand it off to you.
Leanna, I wish every introduction to every training I led was like that, because I feel like we could all just say amen and then leave and have what we need. That was so good. Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. Well, I will tell you, there is no place I'd rather be than in a room full of predominantly women who are here to be in connection with each other and to learn from each other and from themselves something that helps them iterate into the next best version. So I am grateful for the chance to be here with you today. And it is every year for the last decade or so, I keep thinking like, wow, this has been a really tough year. But this one in particular, I think we can all say like this has broken some records for uncertainty and transition and chaos. And so to Deliana's point, what we are here to do today is perhaps the most important thing that all of us will do today. We will send 1,000 emails and we'll have lots of meetings and we'll make a million decisions and we'll take children places. But the most important thing we're doing today is we're just pausing to kind of reclaim our energy, to reclaim our calm. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I do have slides because I think visuals help, but I want you to imagine that we are in a room together and we can see each other's faces and the slides are just back here. You know, on a laptop, the slides sort of predominate, but I use them because the visuals help. But I want us to remember that we're in conversation with each other. And so this will definitely not be just me talking at you. We'll get to talk together here shortly. Okay, so let me tell you just a tiny bit about myself. And I do that because I feel like if you're going to spend an hour with someone, then it's good to know just a little bit about who they are as a person. So my name is Rebecca Johnson. I live on the west coast of Florida, about halfway between St. Pete and Clearwater. I live here with my husband, Dave. That's him in the middle there with his one good going out shirt on. And we have 4 children. We are a blended family. So we brought 2 children from our previous marriages. Our children are August is 24, all the way down to Austin, who is 13. And Kate and Sophia are in the middle at 18 and almost 16, about ready to get her license. This is our other family member. This is Mocha. She's a French Bullweiler, which is a mix of a French Bulldog and a Rottweiler, which I did not know prior to Mocha could happen, but it turns out it can, and she looks like this. This is my other little favorite animal. This is Melvin. Melvin is a cardinal that I love birds. I guess when you get to your 50s, you just sort of automatically love birds and pickleball. That's what I've heard, and that happened to me. So I've gotten into birds, and this is Melvin. Melvin visits me on my bird feeder each day. And I named Melvin before I realized that this was actually a female cardinal, but we call her Melly for short. Here I am with other members of my family. And one of the most wonderful things that's happening in my life right now is we are building a home in the state of Maine, where I grew up, so that when our children are older, we can partially retire to Maine. We're doing it backwards. We live in Florida for a long time and we go north to retire. And then another important person in my life, this is Natalie. She's my business partner, and she and I established Vital Work 7 years ago now. And we have a team of 12 across the country, and our work focuses on energy, connection, and courage in the workplace. And today's conversation is about all 3. So what I'd like for us all to do here as part of our pause and reset is to arrive mentally where our bodies are. And I'm going to ask you to do 2 things so that you can get present and really get the most out of today's conversation. One is to look around at your environment and take care of anything that could distract you. A written to-do list that will make you worry about all the things you're not doing. A phone that's on, maybe turn it off, or at least make it go vibrate and put it in a drawer. Some mess. Just take the next few moments and clear up your environment so that you can really be here now. And then what I'd like you to do is just join me in a couple of deep breaths. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and do that. If not, you can just keep a steady gaze at a point off in the distance. And just begin to lengthen your breathing. So you stretch out your inhale, hold the breath in for just a beat, and then exhale long and slow. And as you inhale and exhale deeply, consider noticing your body and noticing if there's any tension or tightness that you could let go of. Maybe you realize you're clenching your jaw, or that you could let your shoulders down away from your ears and relax a little bit. Maybe you notice there's a clenching around your heart and you use your next exhale to let some of that go. That's just good old anxiety, and we can let that go. Good. One more nice inhale and exhale. Bringing in presence and letting go of worry and distraction. Okay, so we are here to talk about practical strategies for staying resilient in uncertain times. And I wanted to start by sharing this visual with you because I found it a few months ago. A colleague shared it with me actually, and I thought, oh, that explains what is going on here. So this is from the work of Eric Teller, who used to be a director of Google X. He doesn't do that anymore. But when he was in that position, he mapped this out, I think, on a napkin. And anyway, it's on the internet now. But this is a graph, it's very simple, that we call the change curve. And so this vertical axis is the rate of change, how fast change is happening. And the horizontal axis is over time. So this yellow curve is how fast change is happening in the world today, politically, socially, technologically, economically. There is some research that right around 2007, which was interestingly enough, the advent of the first smartphone, the rate of change has exponentially increased. And this orange line here is our human ability to adapt to it, to see something new, to figure out what that means to us, to update our inner operating system, right? And so where we are now is right here. And what you notice is that there's a gap. Things are changing around us legitimately. It's not like it just feels this way, but legitimately, change is happening faster than our human nervous systems can adapt well. And there is some research that our ability to adapt to change is actually declining, right? Because human beings cannot be in a state of stress and overload and uncertainty for long periods of time and remain resilient and able to adapt unless we do the types of things we're doing today, which is pause and reclaim our energy. So you have already done one thing that is really important in staying resilient in uncertain times, and that was to take a few deep breaths to calm your nervous system, because things are always better with a calm nervous system. We're now going to do something that is another helpful strategy, if you want to call it that, for staying resilient, and that is simply to connect with each other. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to give you some really specific instructions because I found that when we send people into breakout groups, they go better if there's specific instructions. And let me share this with you. If you don't like breakout groups because maybe you're strongly introverted and you think, oh, those are too intimate, I totally get that. But remember that all this breakout group is simply a chance to connect with a few other human beings. So when you get sent into your breakout groups, there'll be either 3 or 4 other people there. And what I'd like you to do is just do a quick round of introductions. You can share your name. You are then going to find your team leader. And your team leader is going to be the person with the most letters in their full given name. So my name on my birth certificate is Rebecca Suzanne Johnson. There's 21 letters. You'll find your team leader with the person with the most letters in their name. If there's a tie, you can rock, paper, scissors it out. Team leader, you just have one job in this breakout group, and that is to participate as everybody else would, but also pay attention to time. We're going to give you 8 minutes. And in that 8 minutes, I would love for each person in the group to have a chance to share briefly what is happening in your life right now that feels like it's unfolding faster than your nervous system can handle it. What is a change that is happening in your life right now that feels difficult or overwhelming or stressful? Each of you will have a minute or 90 seconds, so you can keep your descriptions brief. But I'm asking you to do this so that you bring a particular stressor related to change to life and writing, and so that you share it with other people. Deliana, how are we doing in breakout groups? Are we ready to go? Okay, good. So we'll send you out. We'll send a 1-minute reminder at 7 minutes. If not everybody in the group has had a chance to share at that point, team leader, make sure that you make that happen in that last minute, and we'll see you back here in 8 minutes. Enjoy. I think we're back. I hope you enjoyed yourself and got to catch up with some people, maybe met some new people or reconnected with people you already know. Your takeaway so far today is that we have just done three things that are really basic but important practices for staying calm in times that are uncertain and stressful. Number one, we calmed our nervous system with deep breaths because everything goes better with a calm nervous system. Number two, we connected with some other human beings in a really genuine way. And the only thing that makes things better that are outside our control is to connect with other good human beings around it. And the third thing is that hopefully you had the chance to share a hard thing with other people who hopefully listened well. Okay, basic strategies, but really important around resilience. We're going to share two more important practices that we're going to go a little deeper on. And I want to just pause for a minute to ask ourselves the question, why is this important? What happens to us when we are in these chronic periods of change and the need to adapt and stress? What happens to us if we're not really intentional about our own practices? I'm going to tell you what happens as soon as I can figure out why my slide's not moving. Oh, what happens is that there's an impact on us personally. We spend a lot more time kind of feeling unfocused and frazzled and overwhelmed. Maybe we're not sleeping as well, we're overeating, maladaptive coping skills, we become emotionally reactive, and we sort of get ourselves out of alignment with what is most important to us. What is the purpose of our lives? What values do we embody? And there's also an impact on our relationships. Our relationships get distressed. We end up in unproductive conflict, gossip, and drama, repeatedly complaining without solutions, and we begin to sort of underperform in life. So we all know this intellectually. I'm just sharing this as a reminder that this work we are doing on ourselves to stay calm in the face of chaos is really important because it mitigates all these negative impacts on ourselves and on the people we care about, work with, and serve. So the first idea, I'm almost certain you will have thought of this idea before. I'm almost certain this is not going to be a brand new idea, but it is an idea that is so powerful that we need to be reminded of it periodically. And it's this idea. At any moment in time, we human beings can be choosing, and sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice, but it's a choice. We can be choosing to focus on our energy in one of three places. We can focus our energy on things we can't control, like the fact that it's raining today and we had organized this beautiful outdoor event. We cannot control the fact that it's raining. We can be focusing on things we might be able to influence. Like, although we can't control how other people respond to us, we might be able to influence their experience in a conversation with us based on how we show up. Can't control it, might be able to influence it. Or we can be focusing on things that we definitely can take charge of. Like we could decide to take charge of the fact that we feel triggered or irritated right now and to do something productive with those emotions rather than discharge them onto other people. So what I'd like you to do right now is grab a spare piece of paper, any paper, the back of something, a napkin, you name it, piece of paper from your printer, and divide your paper into three columns, just like you see here on the screen. In the left column, what I want you to think about that stressor, that change, that challenge that you just described briefly to other people in your group. And I want you to think about all the variables around that stressor or that challenge or that change that's happening too fast. And I want you to put as many variables as you can think of in the right column. So for example, if me and my department, I am experiencing a lot of stress because federal funding has been stripped for us, and that means we have to lay off people and we don't know if these projects can happen. The things that I would put in the cannot control column are federal funding. Don't have any control over the fact that that's been stripped. Things I might put in my might influence column. How my team experiences this, right? By how I lead them. Things I might put in my can control column, my own thinking. So think about that challenge you just described and put all the variables that you can think of in the right column. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do a brain dump and just get as many things out there as you can. And I'll just keep the room quiet while you write. maybe another 30 seconds or so. See if you can get at least one variable in each of your three columns. Good. In just a few moments, as we wrap up, I'm going to want to hear some voices from our virtual room. I would love for anyone who's willing to unmute and offer up some answers to my questions here. I'm saying that now so that if it's uncomfortable for you to unmute and speak in a large group, you can begin to steel yourself and develop some courage here. So let's look first at our cannot control column. I would love to invite a couple people, two, maybe three people, to unmute and share one thing that was in your cannot control column. Who'd be willing?
With occurrences of life, certain things that happen, unforeseen,
Mm-hmm.
like in my job, store closures or work issues that come
Yes.
up and how to handle them.
Okay. So Carmen, you gave a couple of really good examples there. One of them was unforeseen circumstances, right? If I don't know something is coming, I can't have influence on it. Store closures, good. Could someone else offer what is on your cannot control list? Mary. Oh, Mary, I want to hear what you're saying, but you're muted. I was just admiring your background, by the way.
Oh, how people act.
Yes, yes. We can't even control how our 2-year-old toddler acts, right? Like if they don't want to get their shoes on, they're not going to, right? Like, so if we can't control children, we certainly cannot control other adults. Mm-hmm. Although we'd really like to, and life would be so much easier if we could. Okay. So we cannot control things that have already happened. We cannot control what the federal government has already done. We cannot control unforeseen circumstances. We cannot control other people. Let's move now to our might be able to influence. I might have some influence on that. Would someone unmute who hasn't yet and share what's on your might influence column?
Again.
Michelle, yeah.
Yes, you might be able to, at least I feel this way for myself, is some of my family's choices, like maybe my children's choices. I could maybe influence them in making better decisions.
Yes, absolutely.
And we could even trickle that down to the members that we represent too.
Yes, yes. And let me ask you a question, Michelle. How is it that when we are able to influence others, children, our colleagues, how is it that we influence positively?
I think it's educational, if you look at it. So if they don't have the knowledge or the experience in a particular area, and we can bring that to them. And I'm speaking because I'm not 15, I'm older. So you would bring that to the table. So I think that's the positive way we could do that.
Yes. So one of the ways that I influence is I share my wisdom when it's asked for and when people are open to it. Yes, beautiful. Let's do another one. Would someone else share what's on your might be able to influence list? Karen.
Definitely how you react.
Yes. Karen, I might even go so far, and tell me what you think about this. I might even go so far to put that in the, Karen, are you saying that we can influence how we personally react, or we might be able to influence how another person reacts?
How they act.
Yes.
How we react to something affects how they react further, I should say.
Yes. Perfect. So we are always in life kind of swapping emotional energy with people, even if you just have an exchange at the grocery store with the cashier. The energy that you bring to that situation impacts their energy. And can we control how they react? No, but we may very well be able to influence it. Yes. Okay. So now let's go to the can control. Give me a couple examples of what was in your I can 100% take charge of this. Who would offer?
I think it's how you take it and how you present it. You can control your actions, my personal actions. You're staying positive evaluate a situation that I can control, or how to handle the situation.
Great. I can control my own actions. I can decide how I'm going to evaluate this. I can decide what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. What else can we control? One more person. What was on your can control list?
I could create some attempt to create me time for myself so that I can be a better person, so that I can be better at helping others.
Yes. You can choose whether or not you are going to intentionally pause in the insanity and do what you need to do that allows you to be the best version of yourself. You can choose to do that and you can choose not to do that. And those things have different consequences and they influence people differently. Okay, we could go on here at length, but I think you're beginning to be reminded of the thing we all already know, which is this. When we are, because I do this all the time, focusing our energy, ruminating on, complaining about, trying to control things, that actually depletes our energy. It reduces our power and our agency, and it increases the stress response. And it has very little lasting effect on anything, right? So when we're spending our energy out here in the realm of things we cannot control, we need to ask ourselves, wait, what do I right now have control over? What can I take charge of? And that is always and only you. I can always decide to ask myself, wait, is my thinking serving me well here? Am I stuck in making a lot of assumptions and I don't know the truth? Am I not getting the clarity I need? Am I allowing my overwhelm or irritation to get the best of me? Am I acting in a way that I'm not proud of? What am I doing in the moment and what can I take charge of here? And when we become really good at taking charge of ourselves, we know how to elicit best thinking, which is what we're going to talk about next. We know how to take charge of our emotions. We know how to make decisions that are in alignment with values. Number one, we feel less stressed. And number two, ironically, we become the type of person who has a greater influence on more people. So if we want to have a positive influence on the world, if we want to help our teens navigate this difficult time, if we want to be a person who influences legislation down the road, the number one thing we have to take charge of is ourselves so that we become a person who is listened to, who leads well, and who people want to be led by. So before we move to this really important second strategy on taking charge of our own thinking, I'm going to put us back in gallery mode for a minute. And I would love to just hear some reactions to this. Again, this is not the first time in your life you've ever thought about your sphere of control, but I'd love to take a few minutes. What's coming up for you as a result of this activity? What are you taking away from this? Okay.
I'm taking away from this that it feels easier to do this at work with other grown-ups than it does to do this at home with children.
It does. And Kate, do you have a sense of why that feels true for you?
Maybe because it is hard. I can't control my little ones probably because it's a control issue. I mean, I don't control people at work, but it's easier to have a more grown-up relationship with people at work versus at home. We're on such different wavelengths that I just struggle sometimes with these with these fears with my kids. You know, I lose my shit with my kids, and I certainly don't do that at work. And I noticed that in this conversation. I'm sure I'm not alone on this.
Oh, no, I just saw like many heads nodding. So one of the reasons why this is harder with family members is because we're very attached to outcomes. We very much want the best for our children. We are deeply, a part of our identity is like, I hope they do well. And whether or not our spouse does what we want, that all has deep personal meaning for us. And so it's very easy to be triggered by it. And it's a lot harder to let go. But there's the difference between letting go. When you're letting go of what you can't control, it doesn't mean you're letting go of the desire for your children to have a good future. It means you're letting go of the things you can't control so that, and this is really important, so that you reclaim energy and you can bring it right down into the things you absolutely do have control over. What am I going to say to my child? When am I going to have that conversation? What am I going to do with my unnecessary worries? So the benefit of letting go of the things we can't control is it allows us to reclaim agency so that we can influence. And it is the more invested you are in a person, the harder this work is. Yeah. Joanne, you were going to say something, I think. Is it Joan or Joanne?
Joanne. Yeah, it's just making me realize that it's okay to take a beat.
Yeah.
Since the elections and stuff, it's just been one thing after another. And, this has just like showed me that, yeah, it's okay, that there's unknowns, but like you said, let go of the things we cannot control and take that energy and put it into what we can control and what we might be able to influence. And we might be able to come out with, some positive result, so it's been enlightening
Great.
to just, take a beat.
I'll share with you, I try not to get too invested in the news because it's very stressful, but I don't want to feel like an uninformed person. So I found this show, it's called We Can Do Hard Things. It's a podcast. And once or twice a week, they have Jessica Yellen on. And the episode is called Calm News. And the news is, let's just simply discuss the things that have happened this week, what we know to be true, what we do not know to be true, and thus we don't have to get upset over. And it always ends with, let's take a deep breath and let's ask ourselves, okay, given that this situation exists, what can I do now? Standing around spinning in circles and complaining and fretting, that is not helpful. So what can I do? I can call my representative. There's always things I can do. So this is our beat to reclaim calm, because that is where our agency is. Okay, so we mentioned that one of the things we can control is our own thinking, right? And so I want to share with you this second tool that helps us be able to take better charge of our thinking in the moment. When we are spinning out, when we're stuck in drama and complaining, when we're worried, when we're reacting to someone negatively, what can we do to interrupt that? The first thing we can do is remember this thing that we call the frame. And the frame is just a way of reminding us that how we are seeing something right now in the moment, like what mental frame we're putting on it, even if it's something as simple as an email or a side comment that someone says. When we go through life, it's not that we just observe things happening. What happens is we observe things happening and we immediately put a spin on it. Ooh, that's good. Or, oh, I think he was being a jerk there. Or, uh-oh, that makes me worry, right? So see how we see things in the moment determines how we feel about them. How we feel about them determines what we do, and what we do gets us a series of results. And so this reiterates the idea that if we want to be feeling and doing differently right now, we want to feel better inside, we want to have more agency, we want to be leading as well as we can, we have to change the way we think. So one of the tools that we offer for helping people determine in the moment whether or not their thinking is helping them or hurting them, and then shifting the thinking so it's more effective, is called above and below the line. Now I'm going to push play on this video, and we did test it, it worked before, but once you hear it going, if you would just give me a thumbs up if you can hear the volume so I know we're good. Here we go.
One question that conscious leaders ask themselves over and over is, where am I? To support leaders in locating themselves as they ask the question, where am I? We offer this tool, a line, a simple black line. At any moment, all leaders and all people are either above the line or below the line. Our location describes how we're being with what is occurring in our life right now. If we're above the line, we are open, curious, and committed to learning. If we are below the line, we are closed, defensive, and committed to being right. Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, they believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, they believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? One thing to know as you consider this question: we are hardwired to go below the line. Literally, our brain is programmed to perceive threat, and when it does, a chemical cocktail courses through our veins, and we go below the line. This reaction was designed to help us survive in the presence of a real threat to our physical survival. An issue for modern-day leaders is that often our brains can't tell the difference between a threat to our physical survival and a threat to our ego or identity. We react and get defensive when we experience a threat to our ego. So in many ways, being below the line is natural and normal. But when we are below the line, we're not in a state, literally brain state, of high creativity, collaboration, innovation, and relational connection. We're simply trying to survive. Leaders today can't thrive if they're in survival mode. So the first activity of conscious leadership is location, location, location. In this now moment, where am I? Telling ourselves and others the truth about our current location begins the great conversation.
Let's just take a minute. We're going to recap what that video just said and talk about how it applies. But I'd love to hear from a couple of you. What stood out to you from that video? Mary. Mary, hit your unmute.
Okay, being below the line, but I see myself above it and then sometimes below it. So I see myself in both spots.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, that's good. That means you're a human being and you're in good company, because probably most of you could relate to that. We all can be in both places. You can only be in one place at a time, but we all know what it's like to be above the line and below the line. Yes. What else stood out?
Maybe the fact that we're predisposed to be below the line.
Liza. Yeah. And so what that means is that because we're sort of predisposed to be below the line from a survival standpoint, and that's just a mechanism that we don't really need anymore, but it's still there, that means we have to be really intentional about overriding that natural default.
But I think it also tells us that it's okay to be below the line.
Yes. It is normal and to be expected. And the more stressful things are, the more we are going to fall there. And so when we fall below the line, Sarah, thank you for bringing that up. We don't have to be all mad at ourselves and feel guilty and ashamed. We just have to realize where we are and then decide what we want for this moment.
And Rebecca, in the chat, there is a comment here. Ashley, how we are all programmed to be below the line and have to consciously work at being above the line.
Yes, that is the work. Thank you. That is the work, is the conscious effort to notice
one question
the line and then to do what is necessary to get back above it. So we're going to talk about that. Let me recap real quick. So being below the line simply means that our thinking is not serving us well. Doesn't mean we're a bad person. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It means my thinking is not serving me well because I am in judging mode. I am judging what is wrong. I am judging who to blame. I am judging myself. I'm automatic. I'm blame focused. I'm thinking win, lose. If he wins, I'm going to lose. If I need him to lose, I'm going to win, right? It means we're sort of quietly, unconsciously asking things like, who's at fault here? Who does she think she is to talk to me that way? How can I get my point across? Why can't he just be quiet, right? And those are normal and to be expected responses, but they're very different than when we tap into our above the line selves. We all have an above the line selves. It feels better because we are then in learning mode. I've opened up. I'm committed to curiosity and learning. Being above the line does not mean that everything is well and I'm happy and it's all ponies and rainbows. It means the way I'm going to choose to be with what is happening right now is I'm going to be committed to curiosity and learning. And thus, I'm going to ask myself more helpful questions. When I feel irritated and I'm about to judge someone that I don't really understand, I might ask, wait a minute, what do I really know about this person? What's really going on here? What are my options? What can I learn from this? What am I responsible for? What could I do to add value? What does this moment call for? What would great look like here? The thing about these self-reflective questions is that they are helpful because you cannot be stuck in ego and in self-reflection at the same time. So self-reflection automatically helps elevate us to above the line. Here's some things to know about being below the line that you all have already mentioned. One, it's normal and to be expected, especially when things are really crazy. Number two, it's just a difficult place from which we really can't be that productive and helpful here. When we're below the line, it's not a good time to have an important meeting if you can avoid it. It's not a good time to have a difficult conversation. It's not a good time to make an important decision because your thinking is not serving you well. And here's our takeaway around this. When we notice we're below the line, we have two responsibilities. And we're going to talk about what those responsibilities are in a minute. But first, let's get to know ourselves when we are above and below the line. So that scrap piece of paper you had, flip it over or grab a new one and just draw a line right through the middle of it. And on the top, right above the line, and on the bottom, right below the line. Let me give you an example of what I'm looking for here, and then I'll be quiet so you can complete yours. What I'm looking for is, what am I likely to think, feel, or do when I am in each of these mental states? So for me, when I'm below the line, I'm very likely to feel irritated and impatient with other people. Those are like my go-to emotions. I'm very likely to be very task focused. I just have to get all these things done. I am very likely to be busy, but in kind of like a frazzled, unproductive way, like spinning my wheels. Now, when I'm above the line, I have a deep sense of gratitude for people. I can get into solutions mode. I can offer forgiveness and acceptance. And I'm oftentimes much more productive, but without that frenzied anxiety, kind of with calmness. So take a minute and think about yourself. When you are above and below the line, what are you likely to think, feel, and do? That's probably very different in each state. Hey, just begin to wrap up your thinking. And this is where we get to tell on ourselves and just have a little bit of fun. I've sent a question for you in the chat. We'll start with below the line. This is for everybody who'd like to chat. And when you are below the line, what are you likely to think, feel, and do? Share maybe one or two things from your list. Juliana feels frustrated. I feel irritated and impatient. What else are you likely to be? Defensive? Oh, that's a good one. Yep. Lash out at others, make bad decisions, be reactive, become isolated. Yeah. Oh, this is good. Oh, eye rolling. I love the old eye rolling. Yeah, it's good. Look at all these, right? So this is the list we look at and we're like, oh, Huh, that's a great version of human beings, right? Like, no wonder things don't go well for us or others when we're below the line. I shut down, I give up, I react, I'm jealous, I compare. We all have our own little unique version of below the line us, and all of our unique versions are perfectly fine and to be expected. They're just not the most helpful or productive versions of us. And they are not the versions of us that help us navigate uncertainty and stress and adaptation. So you now know, oh, those are my signs, right? When I feel defensive or I'm lashing out at somebody, it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It means I'm below the line and my thinking is not serving me well. So I have a choice right now. What am I going to do to get above the line? Let's go now to the second question, which is, what are you likely to think, feel, and do when you are above the line? We feel a little better about these. I'm a better listener. Yep. I'm more patient, I'm calm, I have more positive thoughts, I'm open to others. Yes, productive. We all love to be productive, right? Productivity does not really come from being below the line. Scattered busyness comes from being below the line. I'm emotionally available. I make better decisions. I show gratitude. Yes, yes. The thing about being above the line is it just feels better to our nervous system, but it's also much more helpful for those around us. I'm happy, I'm energized, I'm motivated. Okay, so here's the reminder before we move on. I want you to remember that even though lots of us said, when I'm above the line and my thinking is serving me well, I'm in a better mood. I want you to remember that being above the line this is not about your mood, it's about your thinking. But when your thinking is serving you well, it usually results in a better mood and more empowering emotions and smarter decisions. Okay, so let's think about the next question, which is this. We did this, okay? Think about that challenge, that change, that stress that you shared with your group early on. When you are above the line, what is your narrative about this? When you are below the line, what is your narrative? Meaning, how do you talk to yourself about the situation? When I'm below the line, if I think about what's happening, politically or economically right now, I have a big like, woe is me, complaining, wishing things weren't story. And my story when I'm above the line is very different. So think about your challenge, write 1 or 2 sentences about what your narrative is when you are in each place. And I'll keep the room quiet while we do that. Okay, I would love a volunteer. And this requires some vulnerability here because most of us aren't real proud of our below the line stories. Would one of you be willing to share with us what is your below the line narrative and then what is your above the line narrative, just so we can hear the difference? Oh, Deliana, go for it.
Okay, I'll start with below the line. I always think when I'm below the line that I'm getting sucked in the weeds, like in the mud pit, and I get frustrated and I'm like, I don't want to be here. Why am I here? Like, why is this drama sucking me down? And then I think above the line, I'm a flower. I'm here to empower others, like there's so much better things above the weeds. And so that's how I try to set my mind frame when I think about I got to get above the line.
Mm-hmm. And Deliana, so a very strong difference in those stories we're hearing, right? And I would imagine that it's not that anything in the environment has changed. You can be looking at the same set of variables and telling yourself a different story about them. And when you're in that above the line story, what are you able to do that you are not able to do when you're below the line?
So when I'm above the line, my mindset is that I'm more vulnerable, I would say, because like when I think above the line, like where I'm in life, like, okay, I'm 55. Now is my time to train people. This is my curiosity is how do we lift more people, whether it's in my office, whether it's other women. I think of a bigger picture than I do when I'm pulled down. Think of all the possibilities. It's like it's more thoughtful and it lowers my vulnerability. Think, oh, nobody's taking my job. I'm not worried about it. It's my time now to help others instead of like being scared and
Yes. Yes, I can see the big picture and I can tap into my own agency and I can remember my purpose and I can go execute them. So the important thing about being above the line is that it simply feels better, but it is also the place from which we tap into our greatest agency. So I mentioned to you that you have two responsibilities. One responsibility is to notice when you are below the line. Your second responsibility is to practice what we call your trampolines and resets. And these are the things you do. You need to have at least a small inventory of them, little things you do that help you shift from below to above the line. So what we're going to do in just a minute here is we are going to go into breakout groups one last time. This will be a quickie. And team leader, your job is to be the scribe for the group and capture the group's brainstorms. We're going to give you about 3 minutes in this group. So talk fast and write fast. And what I want you to do is come up with as many trampolines and resets as you can think of that you could actually practice in the workplace. I'll give you one example. One of my resets, if I'm feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, is I have to remove myself from the work and I have to go to a different space. I sit upright or I lie down, I close my eyes and I breathe deeply and I ask myself some good questions. That is a great reset for me. It might not work for you. There's lots of other options. So Deliana, when you're ready, we can get those groups set up again. Team leader, keep an eye on the clock. You got 3 minutes. You're writing things down and we'll come back and share our trampolines in just a few minutes. Enjoy your time. Okay, I think are we all back? Not quite, maybe. No, we've got a few more coming in. Okay, so let's do this. Would someone who was a team leader, would you be interested in unmuting and sharing a list of trampolines and resets that your group came up with?
I'll share.
Oh, we've got Amanda and then someone else spoke up. Who was the other person that also just said, I'll share?
Rhonda.
Okay, let's do Amanda and then Rhonda.
Okay, so a couple of things that we talked about. We talked about taking a short walk. The person I was in my room with, Diana, we talked about parking a little further away from the location that you're going to visit so that you do have a little bit further to walk to try and just, take some deep breaths, get refocused onto going into the store and, clearing your mind of other things that were going on before you go in there. We also talked about calling like a coworker to just vent about maybe situations that you've been running into that day, or asking for ways to handle a situation. We also talked about maybe noticing your surroundings, noticing flowers that are blooming or trees that are blooming and things of that nature.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great. Rhonda, how about your group?
So some similarities, taking a walk outside, getting some exercise, listening to some music, helps. Getting outside away from buildings and people, like look at trees, enjoy nature. We talked about water sounds, lakes, the ocean, that type of thing. Even if you're in an intensive work project that you're working on, just getting up and walking down the hall and talking to a coworker that you enjoy. Just having just a quick break before you go back and sit down and get back into it again. And one was organize and clean. If you're in an environment that is clean, you can, accept things a little easier. Everything's a little more organized, and we also talked about being hangry. So
Yes.
fuel your body when you need to.
Yeah, hangry is a great trigger for being below the line, right? That's our body's physiological way of saying, hey, I need some fuel. Okay, so we just came up with a huge list. And the reason that we came up with that list was not just to say those words out into the ether and have them disappear, but so that each of us on this conversation today could grab onto a few ideas, a few practices that feel like they will really work for you, who you are in your life. And you remember that you have a choice in the moment when you notice that your thinking is not serving you well to practice a trampoline and reset to get to that place that feels better and allows you to contribute fully, that allows you to be the person you want to be, that allows you to act the way you're proud of, that allows you to be of service to others. And remember that when you are practicing your trampoline and reset, so everybody else in the workplace is going crazy and you're out there sitting quietly on a bench in nature, feeling the wind, breathing deeply, you are the one in that moment who is doing the thing that is of greatest service to the team because you are intentionally resetting so that you can go back to whatever you were going to do next with the best version of yourself. And that's what this is about. So we have talked about so much today. I love to close these sessions with what I call one big thing. And the thought experiment is this. Imagine that when you click the leave button from this Zoom meeting, everything that we talked about today flies out of your head except one idea. It could be a phrase someone else said, it could be a picture you saw on my slide, it could be a concept. Right now, on your scrap piece of paper, write down in 10 words or less, what is my one big thing from today? If I could hang on to that, what would that be? Take that a minute to do that. And once you have it written on your paper, head over to chat and type in your one big thing there. What is your one big thing from today? Write it down for yourself and then share it with the world. My little weird thing today, which doesn't have to do with change, but I said to Deliana and Deborah before the call, I am going to focus on getting through the next hour without saying the word because I say the word a lot. So we get intentional about things, we share them with other people, and we're much more likely to act on them. When you have your one big thing, please head over to the chat and type it in. And as we look through those chats, I'm also leaving on your screen a QR code that gives you a free downloadable handout of the sphere of control exercise, the above and below the line, so that if you liked it, you can keep it for yourself, you can share it with your family and your teams. All right, I'm looking at chat. What's coming in here? Remember something positive that happened today. Learn to focus when I'm below the line. Yes, it's okay to pause what you were doing and breathe. Yes, it's not only okay, it's necessary, and it is the way we are of greatest service to people. Find me time to be a better version of me. Stay present, get above the line, choose peace. Yes, yes. I won't read all these because I don't need to do that, and you all can read and head over to chat. Some of these things are really beautiful and inspiring. So as we let these chats roll in and appreciate everybody's one big thing, I will say my thank yous, my gratitude for having this time with you all today, and I will turn it over to Deliana to close us out for the day.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was amazing. I'm so glad that all of you joined us today, and hopefully you found your little joy and your calmness in your day, but most importantly, that you gave yourself the grace for an hour and 15 minutes for yourself today to focus on you. So that is one great way to start the day and change your mindset here with staying above the line.